The Teleran harvests were dying. Robotic pollinators sat idle on their rails, no match for the delicate dance of a living wing. The Empire's food supply was collapsing, and no technology could stop it.
Summon the human, the one they call the Orchard Whisperer. I don't care what it costs. Bring her here.
Dorothy Vance arrived on a dusty red landing pad, carrying a familiar wooden box. She walked into the council chamber with the calm of a woman who had weathered 100 seasons. The council expected a warrior, a gene sculptor, a miracle. Instead, they saw a gray-haired figure in a wide-brimmed veil, smiling as if she'd just stepped out of an apple orchard.
Bees.
Bees, you want to release insects into our most critical agricultural domes. Have you lost your mind?
Not insects. Partners. Honeybees have co-evolved with flowering plants for millions of years. They'll understand your crops better than your robots ever could.
But our flora is alien. The petal geometries, the nectar chemistry, how can you be sure Earth bees will even recognize them as food?
Because pollen is pollen. Give me one test dome, Minister. If they fail, I'll vanish. But if they succeed...
One dome. Quarantined. If they die, you're on the next ship out. If they don't, we'll talk.
Inside the quarantine module, Dorothy uncrated her hives with practiced ease, humming a tune older than most starships.
You hum to them. Why?
The vibrations calm them. A bee can read a hive's mood through the hum of its queen.
I suppose they sing to the crops next.
At dusk, Dorothy lifted the hive entrance guards. The first scouts spiraled into the alien air, tasting a world that had never known a honeybee.
They're orienting with infrared. Our sun's wavelength is different, but they're not confused.
Bees navigate by light angle and magnetic fields. Not by what the sun looks like. They adapt.
Adapting is one thing. Producing a harvest is another. We'll see.
By midnight, the bees had visited more blossoms than the robotic pollinators had in a week. The Telerans only saw tiny bodies lost in a vast dome. Selen collected a sample bee and froze it for dissection, her instruments searching for any sign that the alien pollen was bonding. Too soon to tell. On the fourth morning, tiny fruits dotted the barren vines. The bees returned with golden pollen clinging to their legs, and Selen forgot her instruments.
Minister, pollination efficiency is 12 times our machines. The bees form pollen tubes faster than any robot.
Efficiency means nothing if the fruit drops. This is one small dome.
The dome is proof. Give us more ground, and the Empire eats.
Within a week, the test dome was a jungle of swollen fruit and humming corridors. Crop indices rose for the first time in months.
Open a second dome. Same quarantine. Full biological monitoring.
So, the quarantine perimeter widened, but the bees never touched the outside air. Dorothy accepted the slow pace with patient hands.
You are not frustrated? They won't trust your own life's work.
Rushed harvests fail. The bees work while we argue.
The council authorized a second dome, but the word bees stayed a political hazard. No one dared propose releasing them outside. Within 3 weeks, the second dome matched the first. Harvest yields tripled. The council allowed itself a thin hope.
The bees outperform every projection. We could feed the outer provinces within a season.
But on a routine survey outside the quarantine, Selen found a wild hive in a public park, built on a non-native tree.
Minister, the bees have escaped containment. I found a feral hive 3 kilometers from the nearest dome.
How many? How many hives?
Only one so far. But if they swarm, we'll have dozens. And they're breeding.
This is what happens when humans treat life as a toy. The bees have breached quarantine. This is no longer an agricultural experiment. It's a biological security crisis.
Feral bees are normal. You can't fence a bee, but they'll only follow the flowers.
The harvest was saved, but the council's relief curdled into dread. No one said invasion, but the word hung in the air. The emergency council meeting stretched into its 3rd hour. Minister Vallis finally spoke the word no one had dared. Seizure.
Under the Empire Resource Act, any biological agent that proves essential to food security becomes state property. The bees qualify.
Those bees are Terran property, shipped under explicit quarantine terms. You can't rewrite law retroactively.
They breached quarantine. They are now native by adaptation. The act is clear.
Minister, a legal battle will delay harvest scaling. Perhaps we can negotiate terms of use.
This isn't a negotiation. The council will vote. All in favor of classification. Signal.
Green wands lifted across the chamber. The vote passed before anyone could blink. Valis ordered Dorothy to hand over the hives by morning.
I will not surrender them. You'll have to take them, and I promise you won't like how that looks from Earth.
This is going to break something, but maybe I can find a way to study them before it does.
The word refusal echoed through the chamber. For the first time, the Empire didn't get what it wanted from a single human. By morning, a Terran shuttle swept onto the red pad. Ambassador Chen had come to remind the Empire what ordinary meant.
Minister Valis, I believe there's been a misunderstanding about what exactly you are trying to seize. Bees are not a strategic weapon. On Earth, they're considered basic agricultural equipment, like a plow or a seed drill.
But they are invasive. They escaped containment. They pose a risk.
Invasive. On Earth, we travel with thousands of organisms. Microbes, earthworms, companion plants. It's called agriculture.
A silence settled. The Empire had tried to confiscate what humans considered as mundane as a shovel.
I told you, Minister, the bees aren't mine to give. They belong to the fields.
Then train our own beekeepers. If the bees cannot be owned, then the knowledge must be transferred.
Earth will consider a training program, but Miss Vance volunteers nothing under duress.
The demand for seizure vanished. In its place, a new pressure. Teach the Tellarans a craft humanity had spent millennia perfecting. In the quiet of the Earth Embassy office, Dorothy and Shen weighed the Empire's offer. The star chart on the wall seemed smaller than before.
They need a face-saving way out. Dorothy, training Tellarans isn't ideal, but it keeps the bees in your hands.
Transferred knowledge can't be revoked. They'll never really control the bees, but they'll have the skills.
I want to be your student, Dorothy. Not for the council, for the bees.
You understand this isn't a short course? Beekeeping takes seasons, mistakes, stings.
I am a biologist. I've been stung by worse. Teach me.
By the next morning, Dorothy laid out spare veils, smokers, and hive tools on a weathered table under a makeshift canopy.
Her hands move like they've done this for 100 years. This isn't just a skill, it's lineage.
We start at dawn tomorrow. Bring patience, not curiosity. The bees will teach you the rest.
The first training session was set, but the air still carried the weight of the Empire's expectation and the silent question of what would happen if they failed. At dawn, the Tellarans gathered under the canopy, adjusting their veils with three-fingered hands. The hum of the hives filled the silence, and not one of them stepped forward.
Breathe. She smells your fear. Steady hands make safe bees.
One after another, they approached the hive entrance and froze. Selen watched their backs and then moved past them.
I've been dissecting them for weeks. My hands know what my mind forgets.
Good. But remember, a beekeeper doesn't command. She listens. The hive will tell you when you are welcome.
She placed Selen's gloved hand on the frame. The wood was warm, pulsing with 1,000,000 tiny heartbeats.
It's not a specimen anymore. It's a city.
Lift it. Don't jerk. Let the bees decide if you are a branch or a threat.
The frame rose. Selen's arms shook, but the bees stayed calm, a single worker exploring her glove, as if tasting the fabric. By the end of the session, every Tellaran had held a frame. Fear still flickered, but now it was mixed with something warmer. In a sealed lab far from the training ground, Minister Valis ordered a secret attempt to replicate the bees, without the human.
You have the queen cells, the comb structure. Why are they dying?
Every bee died within 48 hours. The artificial hives became silent tombs.
I traced the missing equipment. What have you done?
Trying to secure our own future. But the bees refuse to live without their keeper.
It's not the keeper. It's the soil microbes, the wax chemistry, the pollen blend. You tried to copy a symphony with a single note.
Then Earth has us by the throat. Is that what you want me to tell the Council?
I'll tell them myself. The bees aren't a weapon, they're a promise we can't keep alone.
She walked into the council chamber and placed a dead hive on the floor. No words were needed. The Empire's dependency was now undeniable, a bitter truth that hung in the air like smoke. Chen stood before the council, a new document already glowing before him. He spoke of food security partnership, not conquest.
Earth offers biological support, pollinators, microbes, companion crops. In exchange, the Empire provides rare minerals and trade access.
And what's to stop you from using this dependency against us?
The same thing that stops you. Our food supply is now intertwined with yours. A poisoning is a suicide.
You've already seen. We don't want your empire. We just want our bees to live where they're useful.
It's the only path forward. Pride or starvation.
The council voted. No shouts, no wands, just a weary consensus. Valis agreed to draft the accord.
Miss Vance will remain as transition advisor until the first native master beekeeper is certified.
I'll stay until Sullen can take them. Then I'm going back to my orchard.
A cautious truce settled over the chamber. The Empire had traded ownership for partnership, but the human had to stay. For now, months of peace shattered overnight. A blight swept through the outer provinces, blackening crops that had fed the Empire for centuries. The Empire's genetic treatments failed. Their chemical sprays only slowed the rot. Panic rippled through the domed farming sectors.
The blight is spreading faster than we can isolate it. If we lose the outer provinces, the capital starves within a season.
Our fungicides can't touch it. The pathogen consumes our native soil microbes. We need something new.
On Earth, we had a saying, a healthy soil is a living soil. I have microbial inoculants that can restore the rhizosphere.
More Earth species. You are asking us to release more alien organisms into our soil.
I am asking you to save your harvest. These microbes are harmless to your crops. They'll outcompete the blight.
The council erupted in heated debate. Some called it an ecological invasion. Others saw the only path to avoid famine.
I've studied the soil profiles. Without intervention, the blight will sterilize entire regions. We have no choice.
Valis closed his eyes. The room waited. He nodded once, and the Empire took its deepest step yet into Earth's biological web. Dorothy's microbial inoculant went into the soil at dawn. Within days, the blight stopped spreading. 2 weeks later, the first green shoots pushed through the blackened crust. The Tellerans wept. Selen examined the soil under a microscope. The Earth microbes had not just killed the blight. They'd formed a symbiotic web with native species.
Dorothy, this isn't just a treatment. It's a merger. Your bacteria are communicating with our fungi.
That's how soil works. Life doesn't recognize borders.
In the council chamber, Selen projected a holographic comparison. Dead soil versus the new, living matrix.
Earth doesn't bring single organisms. It brings a portable ecosystem. Every bee, microbe, and plant is connected.
The phrase landed like a stone in still water. Valis stared at the images, realization dawning.
We learned this 10,000 years ago. A farm isn't a machine. It's a wild thing, carefully kept.
The blight was gone, but the idea of a portable ecosystem changed everything. The Empire was not just borrowing bees, it was grafting itself onto a living world. In a sunlit courtyard, before the full council, Valis signed the pollinator accord. His hand trembled, but the ink held.
Earth recognizes the bees and their supportive organisms as Terran-provided technology. The Empire acknowledges them as licensed, not owned.
Selen stood in work clothes, as Valis himself pinned the Master Beekeeper badge to her tunic. A golden bee on a blue field.
You are the first of your kind. Don't let us forget what we owe them.
I'll stay through the season. But after that, I am going home. You don't need me anymore.
We'll never not need you, Dorothy. But I understand.
That evening, Selen extracted honey from her own hive for the first time, golden liquid spinning into jars. The Empire tasted Earth's sweetness.
It's not mine to keep. They were always free.
The courtyard emptied, but the accord remained. For the first time, an empire had accepted that a handful of insects could be worth more than a fleet, and a beekeeper began packing her bags, her work nearly done. At dusk, Selin found Dorothy by the quarantine window, her bags half packed. The domes beyond shimmered with new life.
You've been quiet. It's not like you to avoid a question.
Dorothy turned, her face soft in the dying light. She seemed older than when she'd first arrived with her wooden box.
I need to know. Why did your people carry an entire ecosystem with them? What happened to Earth?
We called it the Dust Bowl. Then the Green Revolution. We learned that a single crop is a death sentence. Only a living community survives.
She described fields of monoculture that crumbled into dust, and the slow rebuilding with microbes, worms, bees, all the small things.
We gained food security, but we lost the wild. We accepted that trade. Now we bring the wild with us, tamed.
Then I will make sure our world doesn't lose its wildness. We can have both.
That's what a beekeeper does. Balance the managed and the unmanaged.
The silence that followed was not empty. Selin had found her mission, and Dorothy had planted her last seed. The morning of departure was clear and cold. Dorothy's students gathered at the edge of the red dust, their veils folded in their hands.
I crossed our native orchid with a pollinator from your own world. It will thrive wherever you plant it.
Then it belongs here as much as anywhere. But I'll take a cutting to remind me.
Minister Vallis walked up stiffly, his ceremonial robe trailing in the dust.
I still don't trust your bees, but I trust you. That will have to be enough.
Ambassador Chen watched from the boarding ramp, a faint smile betraying his diplomatic patience.
Remember, stay still, stay calm, and the bees will show you what they need.
At the airlock, she paused and looked back. The faces were blurring, but she'd remember each one. The engines lit. A column of fire pushed the red dust away, and the apicola climbed, heavy with promise. Through the porthole, the blue-green world shrank into the black. Somewhere below, sunlight caught the hives, and the bees kept working. In the humming ship, Dorothy sat among crates. Stars streamed past the porthole. Her thoughts clung to red dust. She sealed a packet of sunflower seeds, addressed to Selin. The old paper crinkled under her fingers.
They'll need more than bees. They'll need the whole garden.
She remembered the bee on her finger, the one that tasted alien air and trusted her.
Selin, I am sending seeds for your new fields. Plant them near the hives, and the bees will follow.
The message was short, but it carried the hope of 10,000 Earth harvests.
I was just the translator. The bees knew what to do.
A cargo drone detached from the apicola, carrying packets of seeds back toward the blue-green world. She watched it shrink into the dark, then turned to the stars ahead. She felt the quiet of a farmer after planting. No certainty, only trust in what would grow. The apicola settled onto Earth. Dorothy walked into her orchard, the air heavy with apple blossom. The bees were waiting, the hives humming with life. She ran a hand over the sun-warmed wood. In her farmhouse, a holographic message pulsed. Selin's face appeared, beaming from afar. Behind Selin, new hives stretched under a violet sky. A Teleran child stepped forward, a single bee resting on her palm. No words were spoken, only smiles, and the quiet hum of the hives on both worlds.
They're not just keeping bees. They're becoming beekeepers.
She stepped outside. The orchard glowed in the evening light, and the bees were still at work. She sat on the old wooden bench. A familiar ache settled. Not loss, but something like gratitude. The child had held the bee without fear. Something new had taken root on two worlds. Dorothy closed her eyes. Her bees hummed, and behind the sound she heard another world's fields. On the anniversary of the first harvest, Ambassador Chen and Minister Vallis placed their seals on the pollinator accord. The ceremony was brief. No speeches, only the hum of a hidden hive.
Today, we don't celebrate a treaty. We celebrate a marriage of soils. The bees will not be owned, they will be shared.
Across the empire, cities held the first bee festival. Children painted antennae on their foreheads and held frames of honey under the violet sun. Joint research farms bloomed in the shadow of the domes, humans and Tellerans working side by side, mapping the new living web. A broadcast showed the Empire's symbol, a stylized bee, alongside its ancient crest. Pollinator corps were formed, trained by Selene herself. From orbit, the domed sectors glowed a little greener now. Tiny creatures had rewritten the maps of a galactic power.
I once tried to seize a swarm. Now I see. They were never a threat. They were a way forward.
Earth clover spread through the meadows, not as a weed, but as a promise. Two biologies had learned to breathe together. The accord was signed not in ink alone, but in pollen and trust, a new kind of power, quieter than warships. And somewhere on Earth, an old beekeeper leaned against her apple tree, smiling at the sound of wings. Years passed. The old beekeeper moved slower, but her hands never lost their gentleness. One morning, a crate arrived from Teller, stamped with a golden bee. Inside lay soil, seeds, and a handwritten note.
Selene sent me her best. These are for the new garden bed.
She planted the alien seeds beside her hives, mixing their unfamiliar scent with apple blossom and clover. A news broadcast murmured from the farmhouse. The Hive Mother Festival was now an empire-wide holiday.
They built a statue of me in the capital. I'd rather they build more hives.
She never visited, but she pinned a child's drawing of a bee, sent from Teller, to the wall of her shed. The alien plants took root. She tended them with the same quiet patience she'd given the bees.
Everything I've done, they're doing now. That's enough.
She was old, but the orchard was young again, filled with scents from two worlds. On a mild spring day, a small Telleran shuttle set down near the orchard. Selene stepped out, older now, with lines of wisdom on her face.
You've gone gray. Selene, the bees keeping you busy?
They never stop. Just like you. I needed to see this orchard with my own eyes.
They walked among the hives, two old women whose worlds had become one because of tiny wings.
The bees taught me something. To trust. Not just them, but myself, my world, even my old ministers.
Bees don't trust. They just work. That's the difference between them and us.
They shared a quiet laugh. It rolled through the orchard, carried on the hum of the bees.
You know, we have a saying now. Ask the hive before the council. It's not mine. It's ours.
Then you learned the most important lesson. The bees were always the teachers.
The light faded. Together, they watched the bees return to their hives, the sound a lullaby for two worlds. At dawn, Selene's shuttle rose into the sky. Dorothy gripped the porch rail and watched until the silver speck vanished. She sat in her old chair, the cushion shaped by years. The hive tool still rested in her lap, waiting for nothing. A single bee drifted over and landed on her outstretched finger. She raised it gently, eye to eye with the tiny worker.
I walked into that council and said one word. They never understood. It was never my word. They did all the real work.
She lifted the bee toward the orchard. It took flight, a speck of gold returning to the hum. The Empire had tried to classify them, control them, own them. Now, children danced with bees on their palms. Dorothy leaned back. The rocker creaked, and for a moment, the whole galaxy was just this porch, this bee, this piece. A human beekeeper saved the Empire's harvest. They tried to classify her bees, but the bees were never hers. They belonged to each other. Over the dark, a soft hum rose, the sound of bees across the fields of two worlds, a Telleran child in a field of clover, a bee resting on her open palm, a meadow where white clover and turquoise grass grew side by side, a beekeeper's weathered smile, and on her finger, the tiniest ambassador. She never asked for a statue, only for the bees to keep working. The Empire learned that strength is not in fleets, but in the quiet persistence of tiny things. Across the void, children learn to hold bees, not fear them. The buzz becomes a lullaby, a quiet hum that spans the stars. A human beekeeper saved the Empire's harvest. They tried to classify her bees. They belonged to each other.